Joe, especially got the video of this. Could you sign 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4? Go, Ottawa, go! Woo! 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4. What is up, everybody? It is your local Ottawa fan. I just came back I got this nice token from the Ottawa REDBLACKS. That team right over there. A team who had not beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats since 2018. 6 long, painful, agonizing years. 10 straight Hamilton Tiger Cat wins. 10 has come to an end. Finally, it has come to an end. The first time we've beaten an Eastern Conference team since, let me go, 2022 October. We did not do it at all last season. Game 3, second game against an Eastern team, and we win. I'm not ready to pop open the champagne, and it was ugly. But an ugly win is so much better than an ugly loss. There were so many times throughout this game where my blood was boiling, where I was like, this is the same old story. It's the same old team. Nothing's changed. This is Hamilton. We should be beating them. But at the end of the day, whether you win by 2 or 20, it's the same as far as the record is concerned. You get the same amount of points, whether you win by 2 or by 20. One team has a winning record. The other team hasn't won a game. And this was the last game of the week, so we knew where everyone else in the league, where their standing was. And to know that there are 2 other teams going into this game that were already 0-4, this gives us just a little bit more breathing room. Our next game is against Winnipeg, the 0-4 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. We are the reason why they're 0-4. They played a game against us. We beat them. It was ugly. It was close, but we beat them. And here we are, yet again, with a chance to beat them. But the other nice thing is, Winnipeg could win that game, and we would still be ahead of them in the standings. Hamilton could win their next game. We will still be ahead of them in the standings. And we have a game in hand on all 3 teams. We have a winning record and a game in hand on Edmonton, Winnipeg, Hamilton. There's a lot of work to do the rest of the season. We can't call this a win and hang it up and be like, all right, cruise control time. But this is a loss last season. 100%. This is the exact kind of game that we lose last season. And that is why my blood was boiling. Like I said, so many times I was like, of course this happens. Of course this is the way the story goes, the way this game goes. When Hamilton got their last minute field goal or touchdown, I thought for sure that was it. That was it. Because last season, we saw that very similar thing happened. Touchdown, less than a minute left to put our opponents up 1. And that would be where the story ends. There was no brave comeback. There was no miraculous last-second 45-yarder to win the game for Ottawa. And when there were last-second 45-yarders, it was Ottawa that was getting scored on. Between the Blue Bombers game and the Hamilton Tiger Cats game, I've seen so many times Ottawa be on the other end. Ottawa be the team that needs to attempt a Hail Mary, or even better yet, with the Winnipeg game, the third and goal, second and goal, man wide open, and then just out of nowhere, a defender knocks it down, and then sacked on third and goal. That's the most Ottawa Redblacks way to lose a game last season. Score a late touchdown to immediately give up a game-losing field goal. Last season, we are the team that suffers defeat. And this season, those two games are wins for the Ottawa Redblacks. And I said in my preseason video, that is our path to the playoffs. It's let's be real, it's not beating Montreal. And I said after our blowout loss to Montreal that this is the game that matters. I don't like how it happened. I would have liked to walk all over Hamilton. A win's a win. A win is a win. And I think what's important to really emphasize, and I know I'm emphasizing it, this is a game we always lose last season. We were like the opposite of clutch. We had the choke gene, not the clutch gene. And this game, I feel like it's we snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat. And last season, we had a lot of times where we snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, taking winnable games and losing them. This was a very losable game. Hamilton looked good. In the first half, I liked us a lot more. I actually liked how we were playing. We had better offense, and I actually felt like we should have been up by a little bit more. I remember at the first half, I was like, I'm happy to have a lead. Don't get me wrong. But it does feel like one of those field goals could have been a touchdown. And the way the game started for us was terrible. First return of the game, we fumble it deep in our own territory. Hamilton recovers, and they immediately cash that in for 7 points. That's how the game starts. You can't have a worse start to a game. Because not only did you just get scored on, but you also don't get the ball to start the second. Like the first drive of the game was supposed to be yours, and you got scored on. Really, really rough start. And in fact, you take away those 7 points, the first half looks a lot better for us. 12-3 is way better than, 12-10. 12-10, that's neck and neck. 24-22 is neck and neck. But when it mattered most, we got it done. This was an intense game, to say the least. The next drive, actually, after we got scored on, though, in that first quarter, we did really good. It was a very good drive. It was probably the best drive of the game. Now, we had a good return, and I cannot emphasize how much defense and special teams won this game. That really did win us the game. Defense almost blew the game. I do have to say, in the final drive for Hamilton, that could have been stopped. But I can't be too mad at a defense that, let's be real, only gave up one touchdown that you can fully blame on them. The first touchdown of the game, the defense could have gotten a stop, but at the same time, they didn't even expect to start the game, and they started the game, and they started the game deep in their own territory. I can't pin all the blame on the defense there. And other than the last-minute touchdown, they did really good at limiting damage and forcing field goal after field goal after field goal. To Hamilton's credit, they did the same. Now, there were a few calls where, there's one in specific towards the end of the first half. It looked like it was going to be DPI. It was called defensive pass interference, and then it got challenged, and it got overturned, and, when we called defensive pass interference, of course, or when we challenged defensive pass interference on us, it doesn't get overturned. It's command center for you. But that could have been a touchdown. However, ultimately, this was a defensive battle. It was a defensive, which I didn't expect from Hamilton. That's, I think, my biggest sour taste from this game. It feels like Hamilton's a team where you're kind of supposed to drop 30 on them. At the same time, Ottawa does not feel like a team that's supposed to be scoring 24 in a close game. Sure, maybe in a blowout where, your opponents score 40, whatever. It doesn't really matter if we get to 24. They're walking all over us. Their defense can kind of relax. And it's not like Montreal's defense did relax. But against Hamilton, you know what? Yes, we maybe could have scored more, but 24 isn't terrible. 24 is a winnable number. And I think that's what I've been hammering all season. Keep the games winnable and then win them. And then when Ottawa was really good last season at keeping the games winnable, and then the final 3 minutes would happen and we just disappeared. And we couldn't do anything. All credit to Drew Brown. His third quarter, I'm going to be honest, it was ugly. We did not move the ball at all. We didn't get any points. We were shut out in the third quarter. We were looking bad. We had 12 points through 3 quarters and then got 12 points in the fourth quarter alone. And even though, yes, our drive started at a, pretty nice spot for our final drive of the game, we were not immediately in field goal range. We needed at least another 10, 20 yards to get safely into field goal range. At least 10 yards to be in Rouge range. And you know what? All credit to him. Found a way. Got the downs that we needed. Got the yards that we needed. Got the field goal that we needed. Drew Brown didn't get the field goal. Obviously, Lewis Ward did. But yeah, it was a dogfight. But when push comes to shove, we won. Like I said, we immediately responded from their touchdown with a touchdown of our own. Now, Lewis Ward missed the extra point, and that was a huge thing for the rest of the game, because after that, a lot of it was, we got to stop, they got to stop. We got to stop, they got to stop. We got a field goal, they got a field goal. It was very back and forth, but because they had made the extra point and we missed, every time we would kick a field goal, we only go up by 2. So then if they respond, they're actually up by 1. We could never realistically play for the tie unless, we kicked a late Rouge. But even then, if you're in Rouge territory, your opponents know to not give up a Rouge, that if they get the ball in their end zone, to just run it out of your end zone. And if you aren't in Rouge territory, if you're closer to field goal territory, if you miss the field goal, great that it's a Rouge, but you want the field goal, you know what I mean? You want to actually win the game, which thankfully is what happened. But yeah, 7-6, and despite the missed field goal, it's a close game. We got a quick 2-and-out and the ball back. Another good return. Dedmon, great game, of course. I mean, the defense and Devontae Dedmon really willed this game to a victory for us. If our defense wasn't as good as it was, and if our special teams wasn't as good as they were, there were very few times where I was like, oh, that was a good return by Hamilton. They did good at some points of limiting our returns, but we had a lot of good returns, and I think that you can credit a lot of the field goals that we got, which were very pivotal, due to our field position. We did a very good job when we were given good field position. I thought for a good chunk of the first half, we moved the ball. I mean, like I said, we did get 12 points in the first half. There was the touchdown, but we also got 2 field goals, and we were never, because of a return, immediately in field goal range. We did need our offense to do something. Like I said, this is the kind of game that I think this is how Ottawa is going to win games. Defense is staunch and tough and holds you. This game we held them to 22 points. It's not a lot. It's hard to win in the CFL when you only score 22 points. And while our defense was huge, they actually only got a turnover on downs. They didn't get any picks, no fumbles that the defense recovered. Same with their special teams. Did they have the biggest play of the game? No, but did they have consistently good plays? Consistently getting us decent field position. Yeah, I thought our weakest point was definitely our offense, but our offense was gifted with our defense often limiting the damage that Hamilton did. So either if Hamilton moved the ball a little bit, they never were able to get into scoring position. So there was a bit of a weight lifted off the shoulders of our offense where they know they don't need to respond to a score that just happened. Or our defense would very often prevent Hamilton from even getting the ball moved at all, and our offense, alongside our special teams, of course, with a good punt return, starts in a favorable position where we're able to move the ball and get things done. 2 turnovers, the fumble at the start of the game, and then a late fumble at the end of the second half. I think that's what left me a really sour taste in my mouth at the end of the second half. I'll go more into the game just to get there. Like I said, they had a 2-and-out. We gave it right back with a 2-and-out of our own. We had a good return. A legal block, though, brought us to our own 12. So there was not much doing on that drive. But defense comes up big again. A huge sack on second down, put them back 12 yards. And then and on that next drive, we get a huge play on our second down, extending the drive and getting us into Hamilton territory. And on 3rd and 1, we go for it. And offside Hamilton, so we get an extra 5 yards. We don't hit pay dirt, but Lewis Ward comes out, and this time he does not miss. 9-7, Ottawa leads. And while Hamilton is moving the ball well on their next drive, the quarter does end 9-7. Now Hamilton is knocking on our door. They are definitely in field goal range, but they were threatening. They were really threatening. And again, defense did well. And Hamilton has had suspect defense this season, so it really felt like if our defense can just clamp down, we got that. That's what happened. Yes, we didn't drop 30 on them like every other team has this season. But when the Ottawa REDBLACKS dropped 24 on you, like I said, we are not an offensively well-oiled machine yet. And that's the other hope. Maybe as the season goes on and we get more used to our new QB and our new system, we might be able to start dropping 30 points on teams. But until that point, if we're only getting 24 points, it doesn't matter if your opponents score less than 24. We force a field goal, and 10-9 Hamilton. But like I said, it's those little things that we really need. Those little things. Not the, big pick six, fumble recovery. But they're knocking. They're getting close to a touchdown. And it's a field goal. And now instead of giving up 7 points, we gave up 3. And we're only down by 1. Instead of being down by like 6 or 7. And we get the ball back. Ackland had a great game. He got a really nice catch, extending the drive on second down, got 10 yards. But that's all the drive really generates. We have to punt at around midfield. But we do force them to their own 15 on the return. And that's when PI, even though it looked like we were just making a play on the ball, like I said, it felt very controversial, but the call stands. Hamilton is moving the ball. They get to our 45, but again, we force a punt. Yeah, it would have been nice if we stopped them at their own 15. No points are no points. While I was watching the game, don't get me wrong, I was clenching everything that could be clenched. And I was like, oh my God. And as a fan, this was a good lesson. As a REDBLACKS fan, this was a good reminder of not every play is a big play. Another thing I noticed, we had a lot of, even on second and long, short passes. There was, honestly, I can't think of the play, the offensive play that was a huge, 40-yard splash play. There were a few 20-yard splash plays. But again, we did what we needed to do. And I've seen so many times where we try too much. Last season, I cannot tell you how many times we tried for that long bomb 40, 50, 60-yard pass, and it gets picked off because it's an inaccurate pass. And you know what? I'll take short yardage, short gains. Just slowly dwindle down the field, get closer and closer and closer, keep the ball, keep the drive alive, especially in a game that was, I think the biggest lead Hamilton had was that 7-0 lead they had at the start of the game. Ever since then, they never got more than that. It was a 1-point lead here, a 4-point lead there. It was never a game that was out of reach. At any point was it out of reach. There was never a point where they had more than a 1-score lead, ever. I don't think either team ever had more than a 1-score lead, and that is the kind of game that I honestly think the REDBLACKS need to play in order to win these pivotal games. Keep it close. Force these teams to play a gritty game that comes down to the wire, and the key difference from last season, win those games. When we face Hamilton and I think we face Hamilton 3 times this season, win those games. Flip the script so that it's Hamilton that's saying, if we only won those 3 games, if only those 3 games went the other way, we'd be in the playoffs and they'd be sitting here. Flip that script. Like I said, we did a good job of that. They get to our 45 and punt. Now we avoid the rouge, which I like that. I like that call. Some said, oh, just take the rouge, and get better field position when you've already got yourself down by 1. I do get like down by 1, down by 2, very similar, but I like the awareness of like, let's not do that. And we're way back at our own 28, but Addison, another player who had a good game, gets us to our 23, 3rd and 1 at our 32. We go for it. Ultimately, we only get to our own 40 and we punch. But their next drive is terrible. Holding call and then a tackle for a loss. They're 2nd and 22 at their own 23. They can't get anything doing. They punt, and this is where things start to change. Our next drive starts at our own 40. And the drive looks good. We got a 22-yard catch by Acklin. We get to their 30. Like I said, we throw to their end zone and the PI doesn't stand. But ultimately, we kick a field goal. We go up 12-10. And then, they fail on 3rd and 1. We fumble at the next play. The half ends. Other than the awful start from the first half, I like the first half. Guess what? Another awful start. They fumble early on their first drive, and they recover. It felt like, oh, this is a perfect time to kind of feed them their own medicine. But the bleeding stops. They were getting. They got a deep pass, but Malden with a huge sack. They're in field goal range, so again we're down by 1. But again, avoiding calamity, avoiding the big score that I really feel like we give up a lot more last season. We did nothing in the 3rd quarter offensively. That's all I can really say. I've got a bunch of notes here, and it's all just me being mad that we were doing nothing offensively in the 3rd quarter. And they did tack on another score. I think that was the 4th quarter, but they ultimately go up 16 to, I believe it was 12. Yeah, 16-12. And I thought that might very well be the end of the game based on how the 3rd quarter went. And then the final 3 minutes kick in. We have a great drive. We get down the field. We score a touchdown. Go for 2. We don't get it, but I can't be that mad. I can't be that mad because, yeah, you're up 21-16, like up by 5, up by 6. Same difference. They're just going to kick the extra point to go up by 1. You got to try to make it a full 7. Now, we don't, but they go down the field. They score a touchdown. So they go for 2 because they're only up by 1. Whether you're up by 1 or up by 2, a field goal loses you the game, and they miss. And then they squib kick. I'm not making that up. They squib kick, I guess, to try to avoid a big return, and it's still a decent return. We still get to, I think it's about midfield, and we have a decent drive. And by drive, it's not a long drive, but we get just enough. We get to their 40, 45-yard attempt, and he missed the extra point to start the game. So he finishes the game 24-22 off of a 45-yarder. I'm not going to open the champagne. But this felt a little bit like an exorcism. There's work to be done. But last season, based off of how these 3 games went, this is an 0-3. This is an 0-3 start. And with how many teams are 0-4, what have I been saying? It's not just that we could make the playoffs by virtue of us being better, but by virtue of other teams being worse. Other teams being just so bad that they won't make the playoffs. If there's 3 teams, if there's just 3 teams, especially if one of them's out in the East, that are so bad that we're able to beat them and they can beat practically nobody except maybe each other, that might be the little push that we need. This was a great game, Red Blacks fans. It was a tight game. It was a close game. I would have liked to have won by more, but I don't care how much we win by. I just care that we win. And as always,
go Ottawa, go!